Welcome back to Building Heavenly Neighbors. In the last episode, I walked you through what it took for me to get Heavenly Neighbors home care licensed in Kansas. And I ended that episode by saying something that I didn't fully understand until I was actually living it. Getting licensed wasn't the finish line, it was the starting line. Because once that license was in my hand, I had another realization. I had permission to operate a home care agency, but was I actually ready to operate one? Those are two very different things. So before I started worrying about filling my schedule with clients, I decided I needed to build the infrastructure behind Heavenly Neighbors first. And let me tell you, there is a lot happening behind the scenes of a home care agency before a personal care specialist can even walk through a client's front door. Today, I'm taking you behind that curtain. First, I needed a business that could actually function. Okay? So when you're starting a business, it's really easy to focus on the exciting parts of the business: the logo, the website, the business cards, social media. Don't get me wrong, those things are important, but eventually somebody has to answer the phone. Somebody has to send those emails. Somebody has to process payroll. Somebody has to schedule those personal care specialists. Somebody has to maintain the records. Somebody has to collect payment. And right now, that somebody is me. So I started building the administrative side of Heavenly Neighbors. I built our communication system. I wanted Heavenly Neighbors to look and operate like a professional agency from the very beginning. That meant establishing our business email through Google Workspace, setting up our business phone system, creating professional email addresses, organizing our electronic files, making sure there was a separation between my personal information and Heavenly Neighbors business. So, these might seem like little things to you, but I wanted someone interacting with Heavenly Neighbors for the first time to feel like they were dealing with an established, organized business, even while we're still building. So, because professionalism doesn't begin when you get your 100th client, it should be there for client number one. So then I needed a system to actually manage care. A home care agency has a lot of moving pieces: clients, personal care specialists, schedules, clock ins and clock outs, care notes, documentation, and eventually billing. So, trying to manage all of that with random spreadsheets and texts and emails and pieces of paper, that wasn't something I wanted to do. So, I chose CareSmart 360 as the home care management system for Heavenly Neighbors. That gives me one central place to manage things like scheduling, electronic visit verification, documentation, and the other parts of client care. And this was another moment where my mindset shifted. I wasn't just thinking about what I needed today. I had to think about, what will I need when Heavenly Neighbors grows? Because I don't want to wait until something becomes chaotic and then try to create some systems. I'd rather build the systems first and then grow into it, right? So then next came payroll. If I was going to hire a personal care specialist, they need to get paid, right? And they need to get paid correctly. So payroll couldn't be something that I figured out later, because what you don't play about is my money. So I chose Paychex to manage payroll. That meant getting the payroll account established, making sure the appropriate employer information was in place, working through tax and unemployment requirements, and then preparing for their direct deposits. And this is one of those areas where starting a business teaches you very quickly: you don't know what you don't know. Listen, there were questions I didn't even know I needed to ask until I got into the process. So when I didn't understand something, guess what I did? I asked. I researched, I made phone calls, and I just kept moving forward. Then there was the money side. I also needed to think about how money would move through Heavenly Neighbors. business banking, client payments, payroll, expenses, record keeping, taxes, whew, and keeping business finances separate from my personal finances. Because it's very easy when you're starting a business to say, I'll organize all of that later. But later comes real quick. Listen, I didn't want to just build bad habits that I'd have to untangle once the agency started to grow. So financial organization became part of the building foundation, right? Then came the website and the brand. Now we can talk about the fun stuff. Might be fun for some people. Heavenly Neighbors absolutely needed an identity. Who are we? I wanted the brand to communicate what I wanted families to feel when they experienced our care. So warmth, trust, professionalism, compassion, dignity, and excellence. That meant developing our logo, colors, website, marketing materials, and eventually our social media presence. But I learned something while doing that. Branding isn't just what your business looks like. Your brand is what people experience. A beautiful logo doesn't matter if nobody answers the phone professionally. A beautiful website doesn't matter if your personal care specialists aren't trained. A nice brochure doesn't even matter if your documentation is a mess. So while I absolutely wanted Heavenly Neighbors to look professional, I wanted the operation behind the logo to match it. And then I started building the systems nobody sees. This is probably where I spent more time than I ever expected. Folders, checklists, trackers, employee files, client documentation, training records, compliance documents, emergency procedures, forms, and yes, binders. Lots and lots of binders. I love binders. But anyway, if you've been following me, right, if you know me personally, you know that I love a good system. I love procedures. But there's a reason for that. I don't want important information just living in my head. I want a process. If someone is hired, there should be a process. If a client comes on board, there should be a process. If an incident occurs, process. If documentation is missing, process. If there's an emergency, process. Because as Heavenly Neighbors grows, I can't be the only person who knows how everything works. So the business has to have processes. The business has to know how the business works, right? So that was a huge lesson for me. And here's where we are today. This is something I wanted to be transparent about throughout this entire series. As I'm recording this, Heavenly Neighbors is still working toward our first client. And I'm okay with sharing that. Because this series isn't called Look at the Successful Business I've Built. It's called Watching Me Build It, right? So you get to watch me build this business in real time. There are things I've gotten right, things I've had to redo. There are things that I've learned that I wish I had known 6 months ago. And there are still things I still haven't figured out. But here's what I do know. When that first family chooses Heavenly Neighbors, I don't want to start scrambling trying to figure out how we're going to serve them. I want to be ready. I want the system ready. I want the documentation ready. I want the personal care specialist ready. I want the training to be ready. I want Heavenly Neighbors to be ready. Because a client number 1 deserves the same level of excellence that client number 100 deserves, right? So, what came next? Once I had the business infrastructure taking shape, it was time to start preparing the people who would eventually represent Heavenly Neighbors inside our clients' homes. And that brings us to where we are right now. Because this Saturday, Heavenly Neighbors has orientation. And there's a lot that goes into preparing for orientation before a personal care specialist ever walks through the door. the documents, the employee files, the training materials, the workbooks, the presentation, the expectations, and all of those little details that I'm probably going to remember at the last minute. But, rather than jumping ahead in the story, we're going to stay right here and let you experience this part of the journey with me. So on Friday's episode of Building Heavenly Neighbors, I'm taking you behind the scenes as I prepare for Saturday's orientation. I'll show you what I've put together. We'll talk about why I've structured orientation the way I have. And I share what I want every personal care specialist to understand before they're ever matched with a Heavenly Neighbors client. Then on Saturday, we put it all together. All that preparation goes to the test. And then when I come back Monday, I'll tell you how it actually went. The good, the unexpected, the lessons, and anything I'll change for the next orientation. Because we're officially reaching the point in this series where I'm not just telling you what happened months ago. You're watching it happen with me. So, thank you for joining me for another chapter of Building Heavenly Neighbors. Remember, excellence isn't something we achieve once. It's something we choose every day. And until next time, keep making a difference one neighbor at a time.